Welcome back, everybody. This is Mr. Storm, and this is part, I don't know, what, five, six? This is one of them, but this is going to be the second part of our scripting tutorial. I realized that the previous video was getting a little bit too long, so I cut it down and I separated it out a little bit. In the last video, we handled movement. We got our player moving around. We got him jumping. We got the animations going. We wrote this super weird grounded method, which again, you guys can use for any of your games. This will work great for let's say a 2D side-scrolling game like a Mario game, where you don't want them to be able to double jump. You just want them to be able to jump once. You can use this isGrounded method to do essentially the same thing we did here. And yeah, so we got our movement done. Now we need to check for our collisions. And remember, we have two kinds of collisions in this game. We have a trigger collision, and we have just a regular collision. And inside the trigger, we're going to check our checkpoints and our end levels. And then in the collision, we're going to check the spikes. We're going to be running into spikes. So let's do the spikes first. Just because this one's going to be a little bit harder to do, just because we need to think about this. It's because this game allows you to run along the top of the level, and we're rotating our character so that it looks good when it runs on the top of the character. We want our character to come back when it starts the beginning of the level again. We want it to come back in a specific rotation. Like, we want it to be not upside down. We want it to be not flipped. We want it to, the gravity scale to be set properly and all of that. So when we hit a spike, what we're going to do is we're actually going to send our character back to the last checkpoint we crossed, and we are going to reset its rotation, reset the gravity scale, and reset its velocity. So we need to do all those things. So let's do the first one here. This rotation is actually pretty easy. We want to set the transform.rotation equal to, and this is going to be a little bit weird, but here's a term you probably haven't seen before. Quaternion. Quaternion, quaternion. And if we hover over it, it basically just says quaternions are used to represent rotations, which is easy. Okay, so it's essentially another word for rotation. So quaternion dot identity. Identity is simply the original rotation of this object. So set it back to its original basic rotation property, which for this character is going to be 0, 0, 0 on all axes. All right, so that's easy. That's good to go. Now we want to get a component, and we want the rigid body 2D. And the rigid body 2D, we actually want the gravity scale, like we did down there. We want to set the gravity scale to be, instead of setting it so that it's just times -1, we want to actually set it so that it is the absolute value of whatever it is. Because remember, our gravity scale is set to like 150 right now, and whenever we jump, we just turn it into -150. But this, we want to actually set it to a +150, but we don't want to just times it by -1 to reset it, because we don't know if we died on the top of the level or the bottom of the level. So what we want is we want the absolute value of that number. We want the absolute value of 150. Whether it's negative or positive, we just want to turn it into positive. So we want the absolute value of that number. So what we can do is we can call this thing called mathf, and it allows us to use math functions, a lot of common math functions in our code. And actually the first one that pops up, ABS, returns the absolute value of f, or of whatever we put in here behind it. So that's actually what we want. We want ABS, math.abs, and we want the absolute value of this thing. So we'll just go ahead and copy and pop that in there. So we're going to set the gravity scale to the absolute value of itself. Pretty easy stuff. Not too terrible, not too hard. Everything in here is completely doable. All right, good. So now we've reset our gravity, we reset our rotation. Now we want to tell our character to stop moving. We don't want it to move and fly out of there as soon as we die, right? Because we're probably moving when we die, so when we come back, we don't want to keep moving. So all we have to do is actually, let's get component.rigidBody. Let's just copy and paste. We want to change the velocity. I'm going to set that to vector 2.0. Basically, we are not moving at all. We're just going to stop moving. All right. Then the last thing we want to do is we want to set our transform.position to equal check dot, oh, I didn't create my check variable. All right, so here's what we're going to do. We want the transform.position to be equal to the last checkpoint we ran into, right? So what we need to do is we need to actually figure out how to store the position of that checkpoint. So I'm going to make a new transform. That transform, I'm going to call it check. Okay, so I created this new check variable called transform. Okay, and we'll handle that in just a second. So down here I can actually set my transform.position to be check.position. Pretty easy stuff. All right, so now our spikes are done. So basically we are rotating ourselves to a normal rotation. We are resetting our gravity scale. We are resetting our velocity, and we're changing our position to be whatever that is inside this transform check variable. All right, so let's set up our checkpoints so we can actually store those locations. This is actually pretty easy. All we have to do is check if you know what I just noticed? Down here, check this out. You see all the stuff that we're running here? That's going to happen anytime we run into anything that is a collision. And guess what's a collision? The floor. The floor has a collision on it. So we definitely don't want this to happen every time we hit the floor. So actually we need to wrap this in an if statement. If col.collider.name equals V, because we set all of our spikes to be named V. All right, and then we'll put all that stuff inside of there. Copy and paste. And I should have cut it, but whatever. All right, so now that'll only happen if we collide with something named V, which is nice. All right, now up here, we want to check to see if our thing we collided with is named, if col.name is checkpoint, we want to set check equal to col dot transform. That's pretty easy. So now, if we think about it, when we run into a spike, it's going to reset our position to whatever is in the transform dot, or the check variable, right? And this check variable is going to be set based on wherever the last checkpoint we ran into. This is why we want our character to start on top of the checkpoint, because it'll automatically store that position and allow us to go back to it. So I'm going to save this actually and test it just to make sure all of that functionality works properly. Let's go in and test. So we're moving, our animations are working, and it looks like, so that spike for some reason didn't work, but that spike did. Let's see if these work. It looks like maybe my side collisions aren't working. Oh, these aren't working either. So I got to figure out what's going on. Why are these collisions not being recognized? Let's go in here. Oh, I see why. Check it out. Only one of them is named V. The rest of them are V parentheses and then some number. So we need to change all these to be the right name, right? So I'm just going to select all of them, go over here to the inspector, go to the name, and type a capital V, right? And then hit enter. So now they're all named V, so now they all should register that collision. Hey, and it does. And notice it drops me right back into that portal that weird, cool looking portal thing. And here's the cool part. We did all those crazy rotations and setting gravity scale and stuff because, think about it, if we didn't do that, if I ran into this thing right here, it would actually set me back there, but it would have me floating to the top of the level and it would have me starting upside down, which is not what I want, right? Because I rotated myself, because I had it set rotations, it actually brought me all the way back to the start of the level in the original configuration, which is what we want. So that is working. Now we just need to clean up. There's only a couple things we need to do left. First of all, we need to get our end level set up. And that's actually pretty easy. What we can do is just copy this here, copy, and we'll paste it. And instead of checkpoint, we're going to call it end level. And when we end our level, what we want to do is call our scene manager dot load scene. And what we want to, the scene that we want to load is scene manager dot get active scene dot build index +1. So that's all a bunch of fancy talk, just basically saying, hey, whatever level we're on, just add 1 to that level and we'll go to the next one. So it's basically just saying go to the next level whenever we hit the end level collision, which is good. That's what we want. All right. And then let's see, everything else is good, I guess. Oh, you know what? Let's do one more thing down here. I want to be able to close the game whenever I want. If I'm in the middle of a level, I want to be able to close the game. So what we can do is we can actually create a, let's do that inside of my update. So it's constantly checking. Our fixed update is always going to be checking for things. Let's do it inside of here. Let's do close level. And it's actually going to be pretty much the same as this for the most part. Except we don't need this is grounded check. And I'm not checking for space. I'm going to be checking for escape. And I don't need that. What I want to do is application dot quit to close the application. Okay. Now I think that is it. I think that's all we need to do. That is it. That's good stuff. All right, so I'm going to attach that to Unity and close out. And then go back to Unity and let's you know what? Actually, that's it. So look, my first level's done. My programming works. Now I'm not going to be able to actually finish the level because there's no next level to go to. It's saying right here, hey, we can't find another level, which is fine. That's okay. Because in the next video, I'm going to show you how to create the next 2 levels in the game, and they are extremely easy, and it does not take long at all. And I will show you the game loop, how all the game looping works. But yeah, at this point, you have a fully working game, you have a fully functioning game, and you can actually expand on it as much as possible. So in the next video, I will just wrap everything up. It'll be the last video in the series, and we will have a fully completed game ready to distribute to all of our friends and neighbors. All right, so thanks for paying attention, and I will see you next time.